Greetings everyone and welcome to the presentation. Imagine this situation, and I'm pretty sure most of you would find it familiar. It's 2 a.m. early morning and you are still sitting in the war room, surrounded by your engineers who are trying to root cause an issue that has impacted your SaaS application a few hours back. A number of your customers have been impacted and the issue has been escalated to your upper management. You are the head of software development team and two thoughts crosses your mind. Number one, when such issues occur, how can I minimize the impact by enabling my operations team to identify the culprit resource as soon as possible so that they can recover it and reduce the MTTR? Number two, why am I even in this situation? How can I enable my software development team to catch such issues in-house during code reviews and maintain a high bar of code quality all throughout? My friends, we have gathered here to discuss and understand how we can enable our operations team and software development team with the help of machine learning powered services like Amazon DevOps Guru and Amazon Code Guru that generates intelligent recommendations with prescribed guidance on how to address these issues. My name is Nikunj Vaidya and I work in AWS as a Senior Solutions Architect DevOps Specialist. With me, I have an honorary guest from IT Consortium, Mr. Edwin Nikoy, who would share his experience using Amazon Code Guru. All right, with that, let us begin with the presentation. This is the agenda of various topics that I'm planning to cover today. First, we will see how Amazon DevOps Guru enables the IT operations team. Later, we'll see how Amazon Code Guru enables us to maintain a high bar of code quality. Then I will hand it over to Edwin, who will cover how they have adopted Amazon Code Guru within their organization. And fourth, then I will conclude this presentation. All right, so let us jump into the first topic of understanding how Amazon DevOps Guru enables the IT operations team. Before that, let us understand what is Amazon DevOps Guru. Amazon DevOps Guru is our approach to the next gen ops, where we are applying machine learning to the operational data that is generated from your applications and workload. In a nutshell, the process of this service is to improve the applications and services availability. Thus, when an issue occurs, DevOps Guru generates an intelligent digest of various anomalies and events, correlates them together such that it enables the operator to reach to the root cause quickly. And that is the main goal of DevOps Guru, to enable the operator to reach to the root cause quickly. All right, now let us understand some of the feature functionality that Amazon DevOps Guru offers. First, enabling Amazon DevOps Guru is as simple as clicking an enable button and it will automatically start monitoring all your resources within that particular region of your AWS account. Once enabled, you would see the simple dashboard which is shown in the screenshot below. As you can see, we don't have continuous graphs or gauges or even running counters. And the reason is because we want to offload the operators from monitoring the system health. DevOps Guru monitors the system health on your behalf, and only when it detects an anomaly, that is the time when it will generate an alert for the operator so that the operator can investigate and go through the dashboard to study what the issue is happening, and based upon that can take corrective actions. Now, the other point to note is DevOps Guru does not require the operators to set tons of alarms and thresholds, because this could be a daunting task. Setting each and every alarm and that too thresholds for each one of them, that's sometimes very subjective and very tricky. Instead, DevOps Guru uses pre-trained machine learning models to set those alarms as well as thresholds and dynamically learns the behavior of the resources and adjusts the thresholds accordingly. Now, when actually the issue occurs, unlike the traditional systems where you would see tons of alarms being generated, not knowing which ones are the symptoms or the side effects and which one is actually the cause, DevOps Guru stitches together a systematic correlated sequence of events and presents it in the form of an insight. This insight is the heart of Amazon DevOps Guru, where it provides prescribed recommendations for the operators on how to recover this particular issue. So, in a way, when our SaaS application got impacted, maybe our application is a containerized application running on ECS, and we are running out of memory. In that case, DevOps Guru would already identify that anomaly because it is monitoring the container insights metric, and it will monitor the growth of the memory, and it will generate proactive insights. Proactive insights is an early heads up to the operator so that they can take corrective action even before the issue has occurred. And this whole situation would have been avoided. Now, the scenario number 2 could be maybe your backend database is being overrun of its read capacity. And when that happens, you would imagine all the consumers of the information from the table of your database, they are also encountering these errors because their queries are getting unanswered. Now, that's a typical scenario, right? You would see pretty much all resources complaining about errors, and you would not know where to start and where to begin with. That's where DevOps Guru generates an insight, a single insight where it will provide prescribed information. What it will do is it will provide you a visualized representation of those anomalies, which will enable you to identify which one would be potentially a cause and which are all the symptoms or the side effects of it. It actually lists all the operational events that has occurred in the near past, which means maybe you have done some configuration changes and it reminds you of that configuration change, and that could be the potential trigger. Or maybe one of your colleagues would have made that change and you may not be aware of it, and it provides that information that this was a configuration change. And that would enable you to take corrective actions accordingly. But apart from the list of anomalies or the operational events that it lists within an insight, there is a section of recommendations where it has already correlated the anomalies with the operational events and has provided prescribed recommendations. And in that recommendations, it would potentially find that, oh, this was the configuration change that you did in related to the read capacity of the table. That would be the potential trigger or the cause of it. Just roll back the configuration and you would be able to recover from it. So that's where DevOps Guru provides much more detailed guidance for the operators so that they can take corrective actions quickly and recover the issue and reduce the MTTR. Now, that is a high-level overview of how the Amazon DevOps Guru works. Let us understand what happens behind the scenes of Amazon DevOps Guru and how does it work under the hood. In this case, you can see from this particular diagram, as soon as you enable Amazon DevOps Guru, it will start monitoring all the vended CloudWatch metrics of your resources belonging to that region of that AWS account. What that means is it starts ingesting all the operational data from those vended CloudWatch metrics and uses machine learning detectors to detect for any anomalies. When it detects an anomaly for a particular metric, what it will do is it will look up the CloudTrail logs for the enrichment data. As you would imagine, CloudTrail is basically the service where pretty much all the AWS API calls are recorded. It will use those logs and fish out only the relevant events which are relevant to these anomalies which have cropped up. It will use those events, correlate them, and based upon that, it will generate recommendations. As you can see, there are resources which are spawned through CloudFormation stacks, and DevOps Guru enables you to select specific CloudFormation stacks to monitor. So only the resources within those CloudFormation stacks are monitored. The interesting part is it uses CloudFormation stack as an application boundary and will correlate the events and anomalies within that application boundary to give you more meaningful recommendations. So that is a high-level overview of how Amazon DevOps Guru works behind the scenes. We have published a number of blog posts. You can please refer to it, and it gives you much more detailed guidance on that. All right, so now remember, from our SaaS application being impacted, operations was one part of our story. We also want to take proactive action and address the code quality at the source. So we want to empower our software development team with the tools and services with which they can maintain a high bar of code quality. And that's where Amazon Code Guru comes into picture. We will see how Amazon Code Guru enables us to raise the bar of code quality. But before that, let us understand what is Amazon Code Guru. So Amazon Code Guru is a machine learning based service that runs automated code reviews and evaluates the application performance in runtime. It basically offers two functionalities: Code Guru Reviewer and Code Guru Profiler, and you can see them mapped across this various stages. Code Guru Reviewer comes in at a stage where we do static code analysis, and that is where it generates intelligent recommendations to improve the code quality as well as the security of your code. On the other hand, Profiler comes in at a later stage when your application is instantiated. Profiler is also instantiated along with your application. It sits on the same compute instance, monitor your application's performance, and provides you with the feedback on how you could improve the performance. Now, let us zoom in into Amazon Code Guru Reviewer and just understand from reviewer perspective, what functionalities does it offer? Now, why Amazon Code Guru Reviewer? In a typical software development workflow where we conduct manual code reviews, we'll often encounter the status as code being blocked on code reviews. And that could be maybe due to unavailability of the SMEs or many other factors. That not only impacts the agility and velocity of your releases, but manual code reviews also lacks consistency and thoroughness. Amazon Code Guru hardens those code reviews by not only driving this consistency and thoroughness, but it also complements the human code reviews by allowing the human code reviews to focus on the business logic and itself focuses on the functional correctness of the programming language. That is where it will generate the recommendations. These recommendations are generated with the help of program analysis, automated reasoning, and machine learning. These machine learning models are trained from millions of code reviews that we have conducted within Amazon as well as on open source projects. Now, one point to note is Amazon Code Guru focuses on what we call it as difficult to find defects. It does not look for errors like syntax errors or style checking, because that is usually done at a very early stages of development at an IDE level. Instead, DevOps Guru focuses on issues which falls into the categories like race condition, data corruption, thread concurrency, resource leaks, etc. And based upon that, it will generate prescribed or what we call it as actionable recommendations, identifying the lines of code which are at risk, provides you with the explanation, and sometimes even provides you with the code snippets that you can use to replace the existing code. Now, one important part that I forgot to mention was Code Guru Reviewer. The main functionality that one of the main functionality that it offers is the security analysis. Code Guru identifies the lines of code which are at the risk of security, including the top 10 OWASP categories. As you may already be aware of it, the OWASP top 10 is a standard awareness document, mainly meant for the developers, where it lists all the security vulnerabilities that a developer needs to be aware of when building a web-based application. And Amazon Code Guru provides you with prescribed recommendations, identifies those security risks, and provides you with the recommendations on how you can correct those. Now, coming back to the scenario that we encountered, that is our SaaS application being impacted, we looked at the scenario number one where we ran out of memory. And maybe if it is due to a memory leak, CodeGuru would have caught it during its code review. If it sees a particular resource opened in a particular in the piece of code, and during the path traversal or the code path traversal, it does not see that this particular resource is gracefully closed, it will identify that as a potential resource leak, and it will flag it and will provide prescribed recommendations to the developer on how to fix it. So we could have caught it in-house proactively. Now, in case of the read capacity of database may not have been programmed correctly, and that could have been because multiple threads were trying to program the read capacity concurrently, and due to thread concurrency issues, the read capacity was incorrectly configured, due to which your database was overrun. Now, that full issue would have been avoided with the thread concurrency detectors that are built into Amazon CodeGuru. So in your Java code, if it detects any lines of code which are at risk of thread concurrency issues, it will provide you with recommendations. And those recommendations are not as just put synchronization blocks around that code. Because if you put those Java synchronization blocks around the code, it will enforce that piece of code to be single-threaded. But then you'll defeat the purpose of multi-threaded applications, and your application performance will be impacted. And that's where Amazon CodeGuru will come up with some creative ways of recommendation, where it will provide you how you could avoid the thread concurrency issues or minimize the impact due to thread concurrency issues. All right, so with that, we understood how our SaaS application would have functioned better, and we could have caught these issues in-house during code reviews. Now let us understand from CodeGuru reviewer perspective how we can trigger CodeGuru code reviews. We support two different types of workflows. First workflow is using pull request, and the second workflow is embedding CodeGuru in our CI pipeline. So here in this particular diagram that you can see out here, this is a pull request workflow. For that, you have to associate your repository with Amazon CodeGuru service. Once you associate that repository, what that means is CodeGuru is now listening to the pull request notification from that repository. So now, when a pull request is generated on that particular repository, in this example, we are showing AWS Code Commit, which is AWS's Git repository. We also support GitHub Cloud Repository. We support Bitbucket Cloud Repository, as well as the GitHub Enterprise Server as repositories. So any of these repositories, when you generate a pull request notification will be sent to CodeGuru service. CodeGuru service will scan your code, will run it over its machine learning models, and generate the recommendations. Those recommendations are sent back again to the repository so that a developer can get all the feedback, incorporate those feedback into the code, and push the new code. So this is the workflow of the pull request. We also support the second workflow where we are including CodeGuru as an action within the CI pipeline. We not only support it on AWS Code Pipeline, which is our native AWS pipeline, but we also are now enabling to natively support CodeGuru within our partners' CI ecosystem. We have started with GitHub Actions, GitLab, as well as Jenkins. And of course, over the period of time, we will expand it to more CI pipelines. But in this case, what is happening is CodeGuru is one of the actions in the CI pipelines. So when your CI pipeline is kicked off, either due to a pull request or a code push, your CI pipeline will pull the code from your code repository. Now you may have noticed we have not associated in this case the repository with CodeGuru service. We don't need to. And that is one of the benefits of embedding it natively into the CI pipeline. The CI pipeline will pull the code from the code repository, will generate a build artifact, and then hand it over to CodeGuru action. The CodeGuru action will pick up the code and the build artifact, put it into the S3 bucket, which is dedicated to CodeGuru's service. This is a secure S3 bucket which is dedicated to CodeGuru service. It will put the source code as well as the build artifact, and it will trigger CodeGuru service to scan the code in the S3 bucket, and based upon that, it will generate the recommendations. If your S3 bucket did not exist, it will automatically create the S3 bucket with the secure policy as default in it and dedicated to CodeGuru service, and it will start using it behind the scenes. All of these actions happens automatically. It just requires you to modify the infrastructure as a code for that particular CI pipeline and include, or you can say copy paste that CodeGuru action within that infrastructure as code. And after that, once the CI pipeline is kicked off, CodeGuru service will be automatically kicked off and will conduct the code review within that. Of course, you can configure it as whether you want to fail the build at that time or you still want to continue further with it. The results that are, the recommendations that are generated, you can have various plugins for those specific CI pipelines so that those recommendations will show up on those CI pipelines. All right. So now we understood about CodeGuru Reviewer. Let us briefly look at CodeGuru Profiler. Now, CodeGuru Profiler in the CI/CD functionality, we saw the CI portion where CodeGuru Reviewer comes into picture. Profiler comes in the CD workflow, which is the continuous deployment workflow. That is the stage where you have the deploy stage, which is deploying the new application revision onto a compute instance. So as you can see from this diagram, the code deploy, which is doing the deployment, it deploys the new application revision onto that compute instance. But at the same time, it will also instantiate the profiler instances on those compute instances at the same time. This profiler instances will be a profiler thread, which will be sitting on the same compute instance. It will monitor your application performance from CPU, latency, and memory characteristics perspective. Collect that data and send it back to the profiler backend. Profiler backend uses that data and builds out an application profile, and based upon that, it will generate a feedback. This feedback consists of actionable recommendations, which will provide you with very prescribed recommendation where it will show you the lines of code and what you can modify to improve the application performance. And even more interesting is the feedback is the visualized application in the flame graph model. Your application's runtime structure will be visualized in the flame graph model from CPU latency characteristics perspective. So it will show you the cascading function calls happening within your application, and each of these functions, what is the amount of CPU or what kind of latency it is utilizing, all of those will be shown in a visual way. And of course, memory utilization is something which is very, very critical for a lot of developers because it sorts out all the objects based upon the memory consumption. And you would be able to identify which particular object is taking most amount of memory, and you can see the trending graphs of each object to see the memory utilization grow over the period of time, or however it is. So that is a brief overview of how Amazon CodeGuru enables you to improve your application's code quality. Thus, Amazon CodeGuru, once it is embedded within the CI/CD pipeline, it provides you with continuous feedback to the developers so that they can iterate through code improvements. With that, now I will hand it over to Edwin, where he will share his experience on how they have adopted Amazon CodeGuru within their organization.
Hello everyone, I'm Edwin Nikwe, Technical Manager at IT Consortium. IT Consortium is Africa's leading financial technology company. We serve a wide variety of businesses. This includes schools, banks, financial institutions, MNOs, governmental agencies, and some other sectors. At IT Consortium, we noticed 4 key trends which led us to adopt CodeGuru Reviewer. First, we wanted to shift left where we catch all our issues early in the development phase. Next, we needed to also assist junior developers. So we liked the fact that it automates a lot of the code reviews, and this helps us increase code quality as well and saves time we would have spent doing manual reviews. Lastly, we also wanted to accelerate the rollout of new features to help meet our customer needs. On a typical day, developers will create feature branches where they develop their code. Once their code is ready, we push the feature branch to the dev branch. In the process, they create a pull request, and CodeGuru kicks in to do the automated reviews. This takes about 5 minutes or less, depending on the size of the pull request. The automated reviews provide a very good baseline for any other manual reviews if needed. It also helps catch the not so obvious errors in code. Once recommendations from the pull request is resolved, the PR is then merged to the dev branch. Finally, when we are ready to release to our CI/CD pipeline, we do a pull request from the dev branch to the master branch. CodeGuru kicks in here as well, and this is supposed to help catch anything else which might have slipped from the earlier merge. Let's take a look at some recommendations from CodeGuru. The first recommendation points out a method that calls 39 other methods, which indicates the method being highly coupled and it will be difficult to trace change in behavior. It suggests we simplify or break this method. The second recommendation is also about availability of services, and it detects the usage of a mix of 32-bit and 64-bit values in code and warns about the occurrence of integer overflow. This suggests to change the 32-bit integer to a long type to maintain consistency. The next recommendation talks about API best practices, points out usage of a deprecated API, and suggests using a more updated one. The next recommendation is for security best practices, which suggests the use of credentials which are temporary versus long-term access keys. As temporary credentials are valid for a short period of time, the risk of showing credentials in code is reduced. These temporary credentials can be retrieved from the AWS Security Token Service, which is popularly known as STS. A link is provided for reference to read on more best practices as well. The last recommendation here falls under the category of security risks, where it suggests to validate input data before processing it. It gives the name of the variable that is accepting it. However, there is no validation done. It poses risks for malicious, malformed, or unbounded inputs, which can impact the system stability, integrity, and performance. As a result, it suggests to add checks to validate the nullness of the parameter value along with other sanitization. There are multiple benefits we are seeing with Code Reviewer. Our code quality and the quality of our products have improved as we have been also able to identify issues early in the development phase. We have seen an increase in cost savings. And as a fintech, there is a bigger cost to pay if you ship your code with bugs, because we basically process transactions, which is money. We continuously strive to improve our developer operations with the goal to improve software velocity, quality, as well as application availability. As next steps, we plan to adopt Code Guru, Profiler, and DevOps Guru. On this slide, what you see is our software development lifecycle and what it will now look like. This shows how developers push code into CI/CD pipeline, where it goes through multiple stages. In the build stage, it triggers Code Guru Reviewer as usual to conduct reviews and provide feedback to the developers. Now they use this feedback and iterate through code improvements. Later on, as the application is tested, we plan to add Code Guru Profiler to run automated tests and measure runtime application performance. This runtime application performance is then fed back again to developers so they can improve their code. When all tests are completed, we want to deploy the application now to production. Now, we still get that application feedback once it's also in production. We get our usual recommendations with how the application is doing at runtime in production. And we also want to give feedback to our DevOps team, and that is where we plan to add DevOps Guru. DevOps Guru monitors the production environment and ingests various metrics from AWS resources. Whenever it identifies an anomaly, it generates insights and alerts the team. This way, we can quickly act upon issues, know the root cause, and remediate quickly. We expect this would help us to minimize the downtime and the overall health of our infrastructure. We look forward to doing more interesting things on AWS as the platform also continues to expand their catalog of services. Thanks for having me. I'll hand over back to Ninkunj.
Thank you very much, Edwin, for your presentation. As we saw, by harnessing the power of cloud and harnessing the power of machine learning, our next-gen DevOps portfolio can analyze the data much more intelligently and provide you with meaningful recommendations so that you can improve various components across your software development workflow. We saw how Amazon DevOps Guru enables the IT operations team to reduce the MTTR and improve the application and services availability. We also saw how Amazon Code Guru, being a part of CI/CD pipeline, provides continuous feedback to the developers so that they can iterate through code improvements and maintain a high bar of code quality. We hope you would utilize these services not only to enable your teams, but also to provide a better experience to your customers. And you'd rather do better things than long nights in the war room. We hope you liked our presentation. Thank you very much for listening. This is one slide which provides you with a brief information about how you can pursue your learning journey further. There are some links provided for you to go through various different trainings. All right. With that, we would want to end our presentation. Thank you very much for listening.